Hello and welcome to another episode. Why we always gotta start that way. Anyways, so here's the transit for today. Actually today, by the time you get this, it will be past midnight. So for November 10th for Scorpio. Here you go. So what do we have for this reading? Okay, so according to this chart, of course I timed it where this is where my location is, so ignore the houses if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so first of all, we do know that it's the month of Scorpio, meaning like it is the month of Scorpio. I'm doing this because it's, yeah, anyways, so that's what it is. So the Sun, as you can see here, the Sun and Saturn and Ceres are actually in a stellium. So it's a lot to do with self-care. For where I am, it's a lot to do with, it's, wherever your Scorpio is, wherever that sign is, it goes by the signs, or whatever transits you have in your chart will be kind of different from this, but these are the ones that are transiting right now. So Sun and Saturn conjunct with Ceres there, so a lot of self-care, a lot of assertiveness towards that, but in an inwards way. So if you do have Scorpio, any sort of sign, specifically your sun or your moon, you'll be affected by this energy. You'll notice there's a bit more aggression, right, in this right here, this little stellium right here. You probably noticed that Mercury already was in Sagittarius. So that means that communication is an important thing, to communicate your own self-care, communicate your own unconditional worth, your unconditional love for yourself. Self-expression basically is important. You're trying to work through this right now, especially if you do your Scorpio sun, but your Mercury is in Sagittarius, so it kind of awakens. Remember, the transits are there to give you a sort of like a boost or an awakening, depending on the planet. Either it does something, it basically adds that energy to, especially if you have, let's say, a trine, or what do you call that? There's a term for it. A planet that is by itself. It's not it's completely unaspected. There's no aspects to that planet in your chart. So self-care, expression of that. There might be a little bit more assertion because it's a little bit more fire, it's more expressive. So for those who have other signs like opposite of Scorpio, like Taurus or Aquarius or Leo, depending on what degrees it's in and whatever house it's in, it'll change the interpretation of the whole thing. But basically this placement will affect you as well. It'll make it a little bit more challenging, because I know I have Moon in Aquarius, so right now this aggressive energy is kind of hitting, and it's gonna hit, the sun is gonna hit, and it's gonna be a little bit more, it's gonna square my Moon in Aquarius. Right now it's conjuncting my own Mercury, Uranus, Lilith the asteroid, stellium in my 4th house. So definitely like more concern towards personal security, a little bit more awareness of your own instincts, a little bit more drive inwards, at least for me. And so and if you do have any planets, even if it's like your Mercury or any other planet that is in Sagittarius, 0 degrees, like my Mars was in Sagittarius, so right now this Mercury is conjuncting my Mars, so there goes the aggressive, more, that's the one that's coming out right now. It's the whole like, I need to express myself, but it's like a quick burst of energy. It's not a big energy like Aries. Aries is like really like loud and like just explosion. Sagittarius is more like a little bit more focused. It's a little bit more like in kind of maybe it's multi-directional as well, but it's a little bit more focused for sure. It is the arrow, right? So with that, probably a little bit more focused in your thinking. Probably also the opposite, exaggeration, is tendency to exaggerate. With the Sun and Mars, their anger might be a little bit more like there might be things that might come up are issues with fathers, issues with anger and resentment, issues with unresolved emotions, particularly with sexuality or your own sexuality, your body as well. Things might come up. So your heart and your head are connected as well. The Sun rules the heart, Mars rules, well, genitalia basically, but it is connected to Aries. But Scorpio rules that area as well down there. So sexuality, probably people might get a little bit more horny or hornier these days, and I don't know. Okay, but yeah, watch out for those things, especially if you have a square to Scorpio. So any of the fixed signs. It could be also any of the other signs too. Just because it's a fixed sign, just because it's Scorpio is a fixed sign does not mean that it'll be squaring to another fixed sign. It could be, for all you know, trine, depending on how far it is, right? Remember, trine is 60 degrees, give or take 6 degrees orb difference, right? So for example, right now you have Sun in 17 degrees. So if no, that's not going to apply here. Let's go with 23 degrees Ceres. So if Ceres is 23 degrees right now, and then let's say you're Aquarius somewhere, a planet is in Aquarius, and it's actually in not 23 degrees Aquarius, so like, for example, like right here. Let's make that a mark here. So 23 is around right here, right? So let's say it's right there. But what happens is that would be like a square. But if it's a trine, then you have to go all the way to... See, that won't make sense. So right now... See, okay, here's an example right here. So you have, right, Ceres in Scorpio, Saturn 0 degrees, but in Pisces. Why is that? Like, Pisces should not be trine because they are water and water? No, because it's really about the degrees of the planets. So watch out for where your planets are. The degrees matter. Okay, so if you have any of those things, watch out for how far they are. And this is why I like astro.com, because it shows literally like the blue lines, the red lines. It's very straightforward. Okay? And at the very least, if you misinterpret something, it will be based specifically on the chart. And I don't think they would allow that to have misinterpretations, because, you know, I think it depends on the house system. I don't know what it is, but I like to, for example, like for the hard aspects, so square, oppositions, conjunctions, I like them to be like around 8 degrees or less. Some people like it 10. Right, astro.com usually likes it a maximum 10 degrees, and that includes the minutes. So that means if 1 degree is one planet is 1 degree this sign, the other one's was 1 degree, but then the earlier sign was a minute. The minutes were lower than normal. Like, I think if it's the 30 seconds or 30 minutes or below, the one doesn't become 2. But the other one is 1 minute 54 minute. 1 degree is 54 minutes. Automatically, it's considered 2 degrees rather than 1 degree. It's a little bit mathematical, but if you look at it, it doesn't make sense. So you round up, basically. So for those who didn't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. Follow the aspect lines through astro.com and they'll tell you what it is. Okay, so you have Mercury, so you have this stellium, like I said. It might affect you, of course, when you have Mercury in a fire sign that's close to 0 degrees, before or after that. And what is that? Or if you have a square to another mutable sign. Again, it depends. It depends on the degrees. This might affect you as well. For people who are in Scorpio, because my focus right now is on Scorpio, people who have this you get affected by it. If you do have any of your planets in 0 degrees in the water in Scorpio, like earlier in the Scorpio sign, so that this will be trying to your. So you'll know how to be a little bit more disciplined. Saturn is popping up right now because it's like showing me, oh, okay. Right now it's opposing Ceres, but that just means that there's a limitation with self-care. There's a kind of questioning or fears based on how much you should express you and yourselves, particularly because you have Pisces there, right, 0 degrees. Oh, it's not even square to Ceres. I'm so sorry. Square to Mercury, right there. So, okay, so it is mutable to mutable. Okay, my bad. So Ceres right here was not in aspect. Actually, it is an aspect to. It's still square. There's an invisible square line right here. So Ceres and Mercury. So that's an expressiveness, and you want people to know how much you need to know about your own ability to self-care, to take care of yourself, to be your own child, be your own parent, to balance things. Kind of go back to maybe what you've lost and what you've gained. Kind of be able to process that. With the square aspect, though, you're learning from this, even though it's square, like it's negative. That's a good thing, because Mars is telling you to slow down and saying, look back into what you've actually learned, look back into what you've lost. When a door closes, what happens? Right? So be open to limitations, be open to these things, be open to obstacles. It's a means for us to process things, or a sign for us to say, okay, well, if you don't like something, not necessarily mean like. There's a difference between not liking something because your ego says, oh, fuck that. No, there's a difference between that and saying, I don't like it because it's not uplifting, it doesn't make me feel light, it doesn't give me joy, like as in, because many people confuse that still today. You don't want to confuse, you're like, for example, even like when I swear, I'm not swearing because I'm angry. I'm just like, I'm swearing because it's like literally like, oh, whatever. It just comes out. It's a natural thing. But if I'm swearing because I'm angry, that's a different thing. That's ego. And we all know what the ego is, especially if you're starting in your awakening process. You become more conscious about not only your thoughts, you become more grounded, you're more in the present moment, starting with your body. You don't have to go through Eckhart Tolle to understand this. If you look at the silence and take moments, or not only just the meditation, but go beyond that and bring it to your everyday moments. It shouldn't just be like, oh, it's a process, oh, it's a technique, it's a method. Don't wait for it to happen. Meditate now. Be in the present moment now. So Saturn is telling us to hold off and say, otherwise we create more karma. When I say karma, you've heard this before. Go online. What is karma? What is really... Look at Dolores Cannon's stuff. They talk about karma. It's not about like, oh, you're getting punished. No, it's the choices that we make because we become too impatient. Right? Saturn is about patience. Saturn is about discipline. But if it becomes too much, when we create too much discipline, then it becomes it's about fear. Right? So there's always two-sidedness to things, especially with being human, in the human psyche. It's always a polarity. be aware of those things. Embrace that. Do shadow work. Shadow work. I've said this in previous videos before. Shadow work. I love shadow work. Okay. What else is there? Because it's square Mercury and Ceres right now, Mercury and Ceres will also be opposite to Uranus right now. Uranus is retrograde in Taurus. This is opposite of not only the Sun in Scorpio and also Mars, but also Uranus retrograde. First of all, Uranus is like, sudden changes, unexpected things, weird things where you do the unusual. Here it's affecting, for us where we are, where I am, it's coming out, it's expressed through public sphere, people. Weirdness coming out in many ways, and in reputations, people have a different approach to what is the ego, what is, how should I go about in terms of like how people think of me. So we kind of just weird, all out weirdness, especially because now it's in opposition to Sun, Mars, pretty much this time right here. So a lot of weird and also electrifying nervous system, literally nervous system oriented energy. That is Uranus. Uranus is nervous energy. It rules Aquarius. It's all about the genius, the crazy, like, transform, okay, revolutions. But in retrograde, it causes us to process that nervous energy and say, what do we do with it? Opposition to Mars, Sun, Ceres, and even Mercury. Yeah, as far as Mercury, not so much Mercury, but definitely, it's trying to balance. It's showing us to balance what we need to accept in ourselves, like our own uniqueness, our own genius, our own, when you have a nervous energy, where does that come from? What is nervous energy? It's because you're uncertain and you're not sure about the instability. In Scorpio, especially with Taurus, it's instability with finances, instability with worth, instability with what you value, instability with your own ability to gain success, freedom, personal, material freedom for yourself, instability or the ground shaky sort of feel with possessions or things that you not necessarily possess itself, but like your career, your reputation, what you value is like your ego, your identity, right? So this showing us is like people are questioning their own identity as a collective, especially. People are wondering about that. Where do I belong? Where do I go to? So because it's in opposition to the Sun as well, definitely questioning identity, having to figure out what changes need to come. How can I embrace those changes that it's right in front of me? It's like, right? So for Scorpios, they can do this for sure. You have the tenacity for this. You're gifted with the Plutonian energy, meaning like you're gifted with it, period. You don't need astrology to really tell you how the energy is already there. All you got to do is look within. Astrology just provides the little details and the little, okay, in terms of what's there. But it's there. It's there. Time is an illusion. This. Time is an illusion. Time is what we perceive as humans because we started identifying. It's a long story. You know how it is. Being human is identification. It's attachment to form. But form is temporary. Every fucking thing is temporary in the form. The world of form, this 3D world, everything is temporary. But that also means that the pains and struggles are also temporary. This too shall pass. Where did that line come from? Was it Star Trek? I don't remember. But anyways, the point is, you have to balance that energy with like your own reputation, your own ability to see your own worth for what it is, not to the worth of what your mind is thinking. because Uranus is also about the intellect. So it affects intellect. It affects how we perceive things, our perception, our own little geniuses, the wisdom that we get from the external and from the environment itself, and from each other as well, society, culture. But don't go with that. Go inwards and seeing what is my inner understanding of it. Inwards. Download. Connect. At the very least, yes, find time to meditate. But it shouldn't be more than just a technique or method. It's beyond that. It's reality. Trees meditate all the time. Literally, they're in the presence. Animals do it all the time. They're just, as Eckhart says, below thought. We need to rise above the thought. But in between that is the unconscious realm. This is part of growing in this 3D world. It's like world of form. So, yeah, so definitely it'll affect you, especially if you have fixed signs in like another fixed sign. It'll create this, you'll feel this. If you have moon or perceptive signs like Mercury, moon, mostly those two. If you have those in square to Taurus, specifically somewhere around 21 degrees, somewhere around that, 21 degrees, 28 degrees before, and whatever's before that, 21 minus 7, 21 minus 8 is about, what is that? 13 degrees. Okay, so 13 degrees in another sign, the opposite. Whatever it is. So it's between 13 degrees to 29 degrees in a fixed sign, or, yeah. Okay, yeah, fixed sign. So, Aquarius or Leo. Moon, Mercury in those signs. It'll affect you. So for me right now, I'm speaking a little less today, and I'm trying to relax and go really be more focused today. Got my stones ready here, so I don't want to overuse this energy, otherwise it's just I'll lose focus. So the moon is obviously the one that we know this. The moon orbits. It's in each sign about 2 to 3 days. So right now, moon is in Libra. It'll definitely go further into the signs later. It'll go into Scorpio eventually. Okay, it'll catch up with the sun. When that happens and it goes into the sun, emotions will run a little bit higher. But you know how to use them because it'll be in conjunct. You'll know exactly. Decisiveness will become a little bit stronger. Right now, there's no direct, there's no strong aspect or hard aspect. I believe there's a semi-sextile happening here, so there's a certain uncertainty to it, with the sun specifically. But it's only there's only 6 degrees difference. I would say probably semi-sextile. I'm not sure. So apparently that's what I learned. I haven't really got into these minor aspects like semi-sextile, semi-quincunx, or whatever. There's these other ones. I don't want to go too much into them. I want to be a little bit more detailed with the other things that are more important, especially with the hard aspect. Those are great lessons to learn from. So the moon will create, right now the moon is in Libra, so definitely people are feeling a lot more, you could be feeling a lot more balanced, or not. If you're a Scorpio and your moon was in Aries, that's going to be opposing that, and it's going to be a pull, and it's a kind of a feeling of not uncertainty or indecisiveness with your emotions in how you process your senses and what you're feeling and what you're sensing in the world, right? But if your moon was in, it's even stronger if your moon was in a cardinal sign. Specifically, again, it's not about the signs, it's about the degrees. If your moon was in Cancer or in Capricorn, that would also mean that if your moon was in Capricorn, but it has to be within 11 degrees, or again 8 before, 8 after, 8 degrees before and after, that means that it's going to affect it. If it was after, let's say if it was 19 degrees Capricorn, let's say your moon was 19 degrees Capricorn, it'll conjunct Pluto, transiting Pluto right now. So your moon itself will definitely feel like you have intense energies that you're feeling. You have concerns about your past, karmic past, your trauma will come about, power struggles might be. But because it is in conjunct, remember that conjunct is like two cars, on the road going in the same direction. They have the same intentions, same goals, same directions, so to speak. But it's going to affect you in a way where it's like, I need to know how to work with this energy. Just sort of what feels like potential, but it's actually not, is the kinesthetic effect already. It's like, it's moving, right? I need to work with that energy. Especially, even if it's not, remember we all know that from Uranus all the way out is like the what do you call them? The transpersonal planets. So that means, is it transpersonal or Neptune? Whatever. It's generational planets. So we think that it's just affecting us on a generational level, but not really. It still affects us on a personal level or at an individual level. So Pluto might be intensified there. It'd also be if your moon was in Cancer, which will be right at home and 19 degrees. Let's say if it's 19 degrees in Cancer, it'll be in opposition to Pluto. And that itself will be more of a pull. Your emotions will feel like, should I go with the intensity that's being pulled? Should I go with meaningfulness towards just drive to fulfill something? Or do I just want to feel locked in and go, right? Especially if you do have Scorpio Sun in somewhere between 17 degrees, close to the 19 degree, 11 degree mark of Cancer. Your moon was in Cancer, but that comfortableness of safety and security will definitely start to hit home. Pluto will start to go like, do you want to be stuck in that fucking rut forever? No. Right? Pluto is there to flay you fucking alive and say, okay, well, what's the truth? What's really the truth? You're gonna stick with that, or are you just gonna go, so Pluto is harsh. So yeah, you should know, especially if you have your own Pluto in a square or sort of a conjunction, square, or opposition in your own chart, especially if you're Scorpio, because Pluto will rule your sun. Therefore, whatever sign it's in will color your own what makes you shine, what gives you vitality, especially if it's Sun, right? Right. So any sort of sign, any sort of planet that's in Scorpio, your Pluto, no matter where it is, will also affect those as well, because it'll start to rule those planets as well. Therefore, it'll be colored. So that means that if you have, just because you have Pluto, let's say 5 planets in Pluto, 5 planets in Scorpio, but your Pluto is, let's say, in Aquarius, it already has elevated it and made it sort of like, oh, you're a lot more technical than you think. You're a lot more, intellectual, like crazy and weird, if it wasn't, let's say, in Aquarius. But right now it's not in Aquarius. If you had your Pluto in Aquarius, you would have had to have been born, well, you would be dead. You wouldn't be alive today. So, I think so, yeah. Because people with Pluto in Leo are still alive today. People with Pluto, even as far as Pluto with Virgo, Pluto in Cancer, they're really, really, that's an old generation. That's like super old. They're not, many of them are dying off, but many of the ones today that are alive are still Leo, Pluto in Leo right now. So if you have Pluto in Leo and you're in Scorpio, that's a square. Right there. So, but those are really, really, those are my parents' generation. People in their 70s. Pluto in Virgo will kind of be sextile-ish if there is that sextile aspect to your sun or your moon even. if it is in Scorpio. So it depends. Again, it all depends. So yeah, so the moon will be, Pluto will be probably the even as a transit, Pluto might not necessarily be a huge effect on you. Because right now I see Pluto, and the only thing that's 28 degrees Pluto right here, you can see 28 degrees Pluto. Capricorn. Okay. So collective, it's square to the collective direction of purpose. Collective purpose, collective drive towards the unknown. That's the North Node. But it's in Eris is right. The Eris, whatever. It's still there. So Eris, as I explained before, Eris is when you experience. I would say Eris is when you start to experience. As a Libra, I would know. I could be wrong. I don't know, but so far that I know, Eris is like that. So discord, but discord with a pacifist sort of approach. So that means that you might experience things and question truth, and things might be brought to you, and you're like, so again, depending on the planet, it's connected to. But right now, with Eris is North Node conjunction in Aries, and it's square to right here to Pluto in Capricorn. It's a square. It's there's an intense drive for revealing absolute. I would probably say like things are starting to get people start to feel more testy. People start to feel like there are issues about like what do you fight for, or do you not fight for that? Do you go with this? Do you embrace your own curiosity? Do you just go for things, or do you just like let it all just go? Because you have Pluto there and saying, okay, you can fight for it, you can challenge it, you can reveal the truth out of it, but what? Because Pluto is in Capricorn. So when Pluto is in Capricorn, it reveals karmic, personal choices. Right? It's a lot to do with how much you need to work on your own what is true discipline, what is true fear, what are you really afraid of, what is true limitations, what is true conservation, what is true tradition, what is security, right? Reputation, ego, what is that? So with that placement, it's showing us that people are continuously tested and continuously brought to their, basically you can brought to your own. It's a little bit more about logic and practicality in a way, so to speak. But yeah, your emotions might start to get, especially with anger, because Mars rules this placement right here. Mars rules the North Node right now, because it's North Node is in Aries right now, but Aries will still be in Aries for a long time. So Mars is continuously ruling Aries through Aries, and it's in retrograde. So Aries in retrograde is definitely like an inner questioning of like, are you sure? 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 But sometimes even not to the point where you keep asking it, and because that's what Aries is. I feel like Aries is like, she's the breaker of tradition. She's the tradition. When I say tradition, that's not just like Uranus, but she continues to break it apart, because the reason we have chaos in the first place is so that we would understand. So I believe that Eris is bringing about polarities on purpose. There's always polarities, but I think Eris is revealing polarities to the psyche, that you have to be aware of this. If you don't have this, you don't have this. I believe that Eris is like that, because she's the goddess of discord, right? So with it, Aries in retrograde, in Aries, polarity of what that's showing is like our own growth and awareness towards something that's new. Just because it's new, does that mean that it's something wonderful? Not necessarily. Right? Always kind of question what you question, but be open to the polarities with embracing that shadow side as well. Eris is like the aftermath of Pluto. Pluto reveals the shadow, but Eris kind of says, it's that sort of feeling of like, I gotta watch this. So you become like the pacifist in your own life. So we need to be a little bit more passive. We need to be pacifist towards our own shadow work and not so abrupt and abrasive, because that's what it's teaching us. With Aries there, it's teaching us to kind of fight, but that's the unconscious side of Aries, right? The conscious side, a more conscious Aries, has a very childlike and small presence. It's going with the flow and finding your own way to be more independent, your own freedom, your own, but at the same time blending in with the collective and not saying like, fuck you collective. No, but like kind of finding your own direction or purpose or drive, right? It's Mars ruled. So that way you're not in over your head, literally, because it's funny because Aries rules the head right here in medical astrology. So you don't want to go over that. You want to make sure that it's like, so Aries right here is showing us there's a polarity to that. Watch for your shadow. Question it. Are you sure it's the ego talking? Are you sure or it's just, are you actually being guided? Be open to that being present. So it teaches us to be present and accept that when we do things, when we have things, it's, yeah. I think you get what I'm saying. So, Chiron is also here. Chiron is in opposition to the moon. Okay, so, but it's in retrograde. So Chiron in retrograde, I know this feeling. Chiron in retrograde is a repeating reminders of woundedness, to work with the woundedness and see what we can learn from that, so that we can be, when we say, I'm going to say service to other people. When I say service, I don't mean like service as in like gotta sacrifice. This isn't about sacrifice. This is about, think of it as like the cells in the body. When you have your own unique direction, your own sort of like, I guess you could say the role. It's like so part of the inner wisdom, inner intelligence of the conscious in through form, which each cell though has its purpose, and therefore, but at the same time connected to each other. If you affect one cell, it affects another. It's like if you have a cancer cell, it will affect other cells. So you watch what you say, you watch where you're going, so that becomes that whole like, it's a question of independence, Chiron is a question of, you're questioning it, and there's a feeling of Aries, because it's in Aries, questioning of direction and freedom, your, again, independence, kind of like where probably you've lost like maybe your innocence as well, or maybe your innocence, like your curiosity and your sense of looking forward to life itself and being life itself. And with the emotions, with opposite to the moon, it's making us question what we feel, not only what we feel, but like our own choices that we made in the past, what we feel about that, how we feel about that, the instinctual need for safety, nurturing, protection, our own little motherhood, our own little it's like, With the opposition, though, it tells us again to be with it. This is literally also what it's telling, because with Chiron, with the loss of freedom and all that stuff, it's ego stuff. Like, it rules the first house. It's, in a way, it's still some sort of partially ego, partially like this sort of identity where we start to identify. But this is that's more of a Leo thing for sure. But still, it does affect us in that regard. It's Chiron. When we question our freedom, what is freedom? Freedom of emotions? Do I have freedom and just like forget about what I feel and just do whatever the fuck I want? That's what it's telling us, right? Especially with visions. Well, here it's pertaining to this ninth house where I live. But wherever it is in your chart, your transit, if you have, especially you, Scorpio, if you have a planet squaring Aries or opposing Aries, could be a Libra. It could also be trine, it might affect it as well. It brings about an awareness and awakeness of like, where am I in this universe? Unless, of course, if you're Aries already and this is your Chiron return, okay, that's part of the process. It's similar. The transit's similar. Yeah, so questioning of those, like this right here, it's a questioning of your emotions, questioning of why do I feel this way? Where is my freedom? How do I get along with people? How do I balance things? Moon in Libra wants to balance, and wants to be in harmony, but in Chiron they're pulling at it. It's like the moon is like, I can't be still, I can't be harmonious. I feel like the wounds are coming back up, and so you have to sit with it, really sit with it. Venus opposite Neptune. Delusions of value, self-worth. Venus right here where I am, where my location. Venus is transiting the second house. But it could be again in any of your houses. If it's Venus is right at home in Libra, besides Aries, of course. But with this opposition, it makes us question what is real. But internally speaking, Neptune is in retrograde, and Neptune is like right at home in Pisces right here. So a lot of like internal processing of beliefs, your own faith, and what's real and what's not, what are illusions, what's, people are starting to question that. Especially if you have like, it comes naturally for like people with water signs. If it is a trine aspect to your Cancer, if you have Pisces, which is a conjunction, maybe. Or if it's in Scorpio, in Neptune right now, with transiting, it's going to be there for a while, like a long while. But it definitely is, because it's in retrograde, it's telling us to question, to look inwards and say, what is real? Did it appear? Is it there? Is it all of this? Right? So, especially when it comes to worth. It tells us to question our own worth, our own pleasure, what gives us pleasure, what makes us, that perhaps it's not necessarily what is pleasure. 3D pleasure, or is it like beyond ecstasy? Is that liberation, right? So Neptune also represents a certain type of liberation. The reason why is because it's idealism, it's past Uranus. It wants to go beyond liberation, it wants to feel connected. So when we lose that, it sort of becomes like this illusion and this sort of questioning of like, what is real? What is real in terms of my transformation? How do I get free from this egoic attachment? Especially with Venus there, it's a personal planet, right? So we have Jupiter retrograde as well. Your sense of optimism, sense of gung-ho, kind of like go for it, sense of I would say it's like your second sun, your second ability to revitalize yourself, to feel good and to feel like you're full of wealth. You feel so lucky. You feel so good to be alive. But with retrograde in Taurus, especially for Virgo, if this is retrograde in Taurus, if you have any planets in Scorpio, somewhere close to 9 degrees before or after, it'll pull at especially if it's a personal planet. Jupiter will pull at your sense of identity, your own being, and say, retrograde Jupiter is a feeling of uncertainty with your, like, feeling good. You kind of always have to doubt itself. Like you're doubting. That's the thing. You're like questioning it. It's like, I don't understand what's going on. Your intuition might be off as well. You feel kind of like you question your own, like where you've been, where you're headed, and what you're supposed to do. Like your own ambitions might be kind of put into question. It's like, I don't know if I should work on this. Should I keep at it? And and sometimes the whole like trudging through with Taurus there, like even stubbornness and steadfastness kind of feels like why? So so this sense of ambition. What's the opposite of ambition? Boredom. Right? So it might feel like you're questioning your own desire and will, so to speak, to go out there and just give it a try and have the belief and have the faith and have the courage. So when you have that, it's like you're questioning your own, like, I don't know where I'm heading. So Scorpio might feel, especially with Pluto rules Scorpio, it's like you're going to take it a lot seriously. You might be hard on yourself, and you might think like, it depends on where your Pluto is. If you have it in more lighter sign, like Pluto, most likely Pluto, like somewhere between today's generation, a lot of people are like Pluto Sagittarius, Pluto Libra, between those signs, even Pluto and Virgo. As far as Pluto and Leo, but definitely like Pluto in Virgo all the way to Pluto in Sagittarius. People who might see this video, it'll affect your own Scorpio signs, your planets in Scorpio, and it'll be like because it's in the signs towards relationships. It feels like Pluto in Libra, Pluto in Scorpio, Pluto in Sagittarius towards relationships. It's a third quadrant. It will, you might have a more dependency might be an issue, so it feels like you kind of rely more on reactivity and for others to kind of lead the way for you. When you do kind of know that you can lead the way, you know it, but it's like there's a bit of fear in there. However, Pluto is right there also in Scorpio itself. You probably don't have a problem with that. But of course, you know yourself. Pluto, you know yourself. Like Scorpios, you know yourself. You know that it's like when you do things, you have to do it. It has to come from a place of like wholeness. Even if it's like BD fucking DSM stuff like that, it has to come from a place of, is it connected or is it just ego? Right? So, wanting to die before dying doesn't necessarily mean you go get drunk and have sex and fuck everybody else, right? And be all taboo and just get all dark and all that. It's not gonna work unless you know that when you're trusting in the moment that you are actually letting go and releasing to power itself, you'll be guided for sure. Vesta is not, you choose a chart that had angles to all the planets because that would be like, it's so messy. But right now Vesta is square Vesta is in Cancer. It's square the moon. Right away I saw that. And challenges towards maybe relationships and what you're drawn to, how you feel, and your senses are telling, your instincts are telling you about people, and how you feel protected, how you feel like you conserve your energy how do you make it sacred, how do you make a sacred approach, and how do you devote your time to your efforts and all that stuff. Specifically, like your emotions. Is it towards, should I be towards family? Maybe it's a questioning of family relationships. If this is like just transiting your Scorpio, and it's actually like, let's say 10 degrees Sun in Scorpio or something like that, closer to where the mark is, it would be be a comfortable placement. You'll feel a little bit more like, even though it's a retrograde Vesta, those doubts will be more like, you definitely be more like inwards, because you'll feel this Kundalini energy just sort of like awakening. Like, I feel like I know the body a lot more, right? So it's like, so I know how to be more sacred. I know how to work with that energy. You'll feel it. What else am I missing here? Okay, Pallas Athena, my last bit here. Pallas Athena in Libra, 26 degrees. 26 degrees, so it is square Pluto. Okay, so right now people are probably feeling a sense of doubt in their own ability to connect, because traumatic experiences are coming back, or they are experiencing it, and they kind of don't know who to trust, and they don't know how to work with that energy. They feel like, probably, how the fuck is everything connected when I feel disconnected, right? Especially with relationships, right? So here we kind of get tested with our Pallas Athena. Pallas Athena is in Libra, so that means it's less intuitive. It's a little bit more towards the logical side of things. You want to try to balance what you believe in, how you understand your own connectedness. Sometimes you may not even connect. Sometimes you feel like one foot is on this world, the other one's on the other world. One's on the horizontal and the other one's on. So it feels kind of, maybe, it might feel like an imbalance at times, but in Libra, I guess harmony is kind of more achieved through an understanding of the fact that here in this case it's a release of imbalance, or a release of balance, so that it's almost like it's kind of you're trusting the chaos to happen, and with the Pluto there, it's kind of revealing it even more, and people are starting to see that, and it's like, if you're Scorpio, if your planets are in Scorpio, but you have, let's say, another planet close to, like, in Libra, it'll conjunct Pallas Athena, and you'll feel that sort of like, by being harmonious, when I say harmonious, not necessarily for the sake of harmony, but being at peace with yourself, being accepting of the fact that that's fine. Let's see what else happens. Right? Be careful not to use too much logic, of course. Too much of anything, too less of anything is an imbalance itself. You need to be not only balanced, but whole, and accept that it's like, again, everything is temporary. So that's about it for today. I didn't mention Juno here. I miss Juno. I'm sorry, Hera. 9 degrees, so well, it's a sextile to the Sun here. So potential to use a commitment towards own vitality, I don't know. I'm running low on energy right now, probably because these earphones are like squeezing in. I realized that when I talk and use these, I feel like I'm exerting more energy to speak. So I really probably should work with less headphones and just start speaking without headsets, because it feels like can't hear everything. Anyways, okay. But that's okay. We all learn from our experiences. There's more to say, for sure. But if you have any questions, do post it on the comments below. But yeah, so this is the little transit reading. This is not already, of course, this is for general Scorpios out there. Whatever your placements are, go with it, sit with it. Be blessed. No, give in to the power. Don't need to take the power. Or you can, and then learn from it. It's up to you. That's so Arisian of me. Arisian? Aries? Yeah. Okay. But in any case, thanks for listening. I think that'll be it for now. I will see you later. Ciao, dear, as they say in Slovak. Yes, I'm acquiring that right now. Wonderful, wonderful. Blessed be to everyone. Thank you so much. Have a good day.